Now, if you think about it, we are the only species that drinks the milk of another species into adulthood. You know, no other species does this.
It's
So
absolutely not. Yeah, it's
either we are
absolutely.
uniquely clever as a species about nutrition, about calcium, that no other species knows about this, or we are uniquely gullible as a species, and we are being misled by the dairy industry through our schools.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Climate and Cuisine, a podcast that connects the impact of the food we eat on the climate. My name is Jane DeMarinis, and I'm the Executive Director of Climate Diet, a nonprofit located in Washington, D.C. And our mission is to promote awareness of this issue of how our food choices are impacting the planet that we live in. And I'm so excited today. Our guest today is Dr. Sailesh Rao, a friend and a leader in this field, and the author of a new book titled Planet B, which we are eager to discuss. I also just want to say up front that when I started Climate Diet 5 years ago, a mutual colleague, Glenn Mercer, who is the author of a book himself called Food is Climate, and I had read, told me the person I needed to meet immediately was Dr. Sailesh Rao. And so I met him soon after that and continued to learn from him. And the work that he does besides writing books is he's the leader of an organization called Climate Healers. And they are leading the way with information and knowledge and bringing together experts and scientists in this field to really expand the knowledge of everybody working on it, and for those who consume food, pretty much everybody. So Sailesh, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today, and congratulations on your new book, Planet B.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So jumping right into it, let's talk about animal agriculture. Why do you believe animal agriculture deserves far more attention in the climate discussions than it currently receives?
Well, animal agriculture is the leading driver of almost every known environmental problem on the planet. Okay. The reason is that our animals are eating 5 times as much food as we eat. So if you look at the total amount of food that's being extracted from the planet, as mammals, for every 100 plates of food that mammals extract from the planet on land, 81 plates go to feed our animals. Only
That's
18 plates go to feed human beings, and exactly 1 plate has to be shared by all the wild land mammals on the planet. From elephants to tigers to lions to deer to rats to mice, all put together, they get only 1 plate out of the 100. Okay. So that's how the biomass of the planet is being divided up. And you can see, because of the impact that land and our farmed animals are having on the planet, that could be, the leading cause of almost every environmental problem that we're facing. And
absolutely.
so, yeah. So it's not just climate. Climate is to me just number 4 out of the 7 planetary boundary transgressions. If you rate it by the how the life support systems of the planet is being impacted by human actions, climate is only number 4 out of 7. Number 1 is loss of biodiversity, and that comes from the fact that we're taking so much of the food for ourselves. And number 2 is chemical pollution. Number 3 is nitrogen and phosphorus. And number 4 is climate. Number 5 is land use. Number 6 is water use. And number 7 is ocean acidification. Yeah. But all 7 of them can be healed if the world goes on a plant-based diet. 100% plant-based diet. And that's what I'm trying to do now, on the ground. I'm here in state of Washington, um, with a project called Together Around Food. So it's a collaboration between climate healers, Loving Hut International Cuisine, and the Human Ecology Project. And
That
what we're
sounds great.
doing, yeah, what we're doing is feeding people for 15 days, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, free of charge, a whole food plant-based meal. And we are inviting people to just see how they feel. And this is only day 5. Actually, this is day 6. 5 days are completed, and people are coming for breakfast and they're saying, we are feeling great, after eating this way, just after 5 days.
Well, it
So,
probably also helps on the grocery bills, right? Since grocery prices have gone up quite a bit. But no, absolutely. Since I am a vegan for 20 years, I couldn't agree with you more that people will feel
right,
it.
right, yeah,
That's
yeah.
exciting. That is really an exciting progress. Well, I hope you'll let us know about that. And that sounds like podcast number 2 with you if you're
Okay,
available. Maybe
sure.
you'll be on ABC News or NBC News with something good. I wish they would cover this issue more. So here's another question. Many people talk about climate change, but they're really not
Mm,
ready to become fully vegan. What do you think
mhm.
is the most effective steps that they can take to ease into it? Because, I do think a lot of people see it as so
Come on.
dramatic a
He
change.
loves everybody.
Yes.
What's your advice?
You are
Yeah.
oh, careful. Sorry about that.
It's a dog who got into a. Yeah. No, my advice to people is keep taking steps in that direction, reducing your meat consumption, meat and dairy consumption, and increasing your plant food consumption. Because every step you take in that direction is a step in the right direction. Eventually, of course, you need to get to 100% plants. But that's the stable point. So it's not about, leaving it at 50%, because I don't see a system around reduction like that. A system is when you are able to transform completely.
Yeah, well, you brought up um, in your first answer and your first discussion of your book how inefficient it is. And I think the
Mm.
piece of data that sticks in my mind is 80% of the land mass is being used for animal agriculture, but it's only producing 20% of the food that's needed by the world. So just from the get-go, it's never going to work.
Right.
It's never going to
Yeah,
work.
it's actually 87% of the land used for food is going for animal agriculture, and it's producing 12% by weight of the food and 18% by calories.
Yeah,
And
I
when
was
you measure
using
just calories, you're saying fiber is not important when you measure calories. But fiber is absolutely an essential ingredient for our food, but for our gut bacteria. So I measure in terms of dry weight. And in that case, it's 12%.
okay. So the data I'm using may be a little bit old since it was 80%. So you're saying it's 87, using 87% of the land
Right.
mass. It's it's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about your book.
Hmm.
If your vision of Planet B would, what would it everyday life look like for families, schools, for communities, if people adopt it? Your book, what problems would it solve, and what would it look like for our communities, our families?
Yeah. The objective of Planet B is to solve all the problems. It's not like I'm trying to solve one at a time, because it's a systemic issue. So you have to change the system. Um, a system is an organized way of accomplishing an objective. So first, we have to decide what is our objective of organizing ourselves. Right now, we are organized around extracting from the planet and hoarding. Okay, that's our main objective as a civilization. And I said that's an objective that's going to lead to disaster. And sure enough, it is leading to disaster, right? Instead, our objective should be to maintain the planet's health. So planetary health should be the main objective. And if we organize around that objective, which is what Planet B is all about, then you have to create a food system around that objective, which is consistent with that objective. You have to create an education system that's consistent with that objective. You have to create a healthcare system that's consistent with that objective. Governance system consistent. So everything has to be consistent with the overall objective of planetary health. And so then you can design these subsystems. I'm saying, okay, the food system should be about nourishing people. So how would you nourish people? And I say the easiest way, the best way to nourish people is to cook together as a community. So we have community-based food systems in Planet B, which is what we are trying out here in Washington State. The community-based food system in which the community cooks together and makes healthy food freely available to every human being on the planet. So
I love that.
Yeah, so it's a basic human right to have access to healthy food, just like it's a basic human right to have access to clean water and to have access to pure air. So because it's essential for life, right? Healthy food should also be a basic human right, and it's the responsibility of the community to make that happen. So it's a shared community responsibility. Yeah.
Sure, and I totally agree with you. I'm just thinking about your background as a systems engineer, trying to put in place the systems, and part of that certainly is our government. And I'm here in Washington, D.C. There is a plant-based community committee that works. It's not an official committee of Congress, but it's actually, I don't know how it describes itself, but it's fairly new, and they're inviting people like me, and I don't know if they're extending it, if you've seen this, but I'm glad to give you information because they would benefit from having someone like you give them advice and your research and knowledge. But at least it's a stepping stone, I think, to get, things that are funded by the federal government. The school nutrition programs are funded by the government, even though they're locally distributed. There's federal money going into those. So putting some parameters, I don't know if you've looked into that. I know you've done work with schools, but talk about that for a minute, if you could.
Yeah, in schools, I've gone and given lectures about Planet B, about how you transform systems, because it's a system transformation that needs to happen, right? So once you identify that you need to transform systems, how would you go about doing it? And what are the leverage points that are available? So first, of course, the main thing is I say you have to have the right objective function. You have to have the right constraint sets and feedback loops in place to make sure that you meet the objective functions. So children understand these things. It's not that hard, once you say, okay, if your goal is that, you have to go work towards that goal. And I would love to speak to the government officials about this. In fact, that's the reason why we are doing it here, is that we are documenting it. And we're going to take the documentary to the UN meetings in Mongolia, which is the desertification meeting in August, and to the UN meeting in Turkey for the climate change meeting, and showing the delegates, look, the people want it. It's not that you have to hide this anymore. You can tell people, and you can do this, and here is a turnkey way of doing it, right? Where you go and give them healthy food for free for 15 days. And then they say, what's happening here is that, people are saying, okay, how do we continue this going forward? So the community is figuring out how to get its resources in place to make it happen going forward. In fact, that's our discussion this evening. So what we have been doing is serving 3 meals, 3 times a day. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And after dinner, we have a talk as to why we are doing this, right? And So we've had several people speak. Yesterday we had a panel session, and today we are leaving it open to the community to come and talk about how would they take it forward. What are their ideas for taking it forward? Yeah.
There's some business opportunities here for people that may be in a different party than I'm in that would
Right.
really, that's needed, that have the cash or the funds to start new businesses if there aren't enough that exist. I think we need,
Right.
in
Yeah.
Washington, D.C., we've seen some vegan restaurants go out of business in the last year, which makes me
Right.
sad. But at the same time, my Safeway has expanded the frozen vegan food section by, I would say, 5 times from what it used to be. So that's also, I think, a
Right.
really positive sign that consumers obviously have been telling and asking for this food, and they're selling it. And
Yeah.
you
In
don't
fact,
have to
it's
go
it's
to a
a
niche store. You can just go to a regular grocery store. So, there's
right.
good news and bad news, I guess.
No,
So,
it's all part of the same system transformation, Jane, because what's happening is that more and more restaurants are offering vegan options.
that's
And
true. Yeah,
so as more and more restaurants offer vegan options, vegan restaurants find it hard to stay in business because previously what used to happen is that in any group, if there was one vegan, the vegan would say, hey, let's all go to a vegan restaurant, and they would go because the other restaurants didn't have vegan options. And now, because every restaurant has vegan options, people are able to go to other restaurants. So the vegan-only restaurants are suffering as a result of that.
um, I didn't think of it that way, but that absolutely makes sense. So
Right.
we were talking about the schools. So students, I don't know to what extent they're being taught about the impact of food choices. I've worked locally with a few schools. It's not huge yet.
Mhm.
But the documentary you're producing would be a great tool. I was wondering if you could share it with your congressman and ask for a hearing on this that talks about the, congressmen, there should be responsive to their constituents. And if you have research and information that they could share in another way,
Yeah.
where federal funds are used, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I'll do that. But thanks for the tip.
Uh,
And in schools, though, I feel like uh, children are already open to this. Okay. But now they're being in the schools, they're being systematically misled into believing that protein is only found in meat
yeah,
and calcium is only found in milk. And this systematically, so it's a system, right? It's an education system. And the system is misleading people. And we know that because there was a survey done by PCRM, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, in which adult Americans, 90% of adult Americans said they think that protein is only found in meat.
I'd like to see
So,
that. Was that recent?
yeah, it's a recent survey. I'll send you the link to that. And if that's how adults are being that's the impression that adults have, clearly they have been miseducated, right? So you ask, how did the miseducation happen? And it's actually through omission, curriculum omissions. So protein is only spoken about along with meat in
Yeah.
school science textbooks. They never say that protein is found in all plant foods, which is the truth. In fact, all amino acids are found in all plant foods. And there is a database of over 11,500 foods compiled by the University of Minnesota that shows that. So
Hmm.
why isn't that being discussed in science textbooks? Okay? That's how you mislead people, by just saying protein meat, protein meat. And same way by saying calcium milk, you're
Yeah.
misleading people into thinking that calcium is only found in milk. Now, if you think about it, we are the only species that drinks the milk of another species into adulthood. You know, no other species does this.
It's
So either
absolutely
we
not.
are
Yes,
Either we are
absolutely.
uniquely clever as a species about nutrition, about calcium, that no other species knows about this, or we are uniquely gullible as a species, and we are being misled by the dairy industry through our schools. And I think it's the latter that's happening, right? So I say we have to now systematically re-educate people,
Yes.
just like they're systematically miseducated, you know?
Other countries are certainly further behind, further ahead than the United States. I mean, I think, continue to be the biggest meat eaters next to Australia, or Australia, I think, is second. But UK, if you look at the rates of plant-based eating, they're way higher.
Right.
India is
Yeah.
tops. 41%, I think, of Indians are vegans. And
Vegetarian, yeah.
vegetarian?
Vegetarian.
Okay. Oh, there's an
Yeah.
issue with milk, I think, isn't there?
Yeah, there's an issue with milk. And there again, they are being misled by the school system about calcium, right? And protein also. There's animal foods, not meat. Animal foods have protein. So they're taking the milk for protein. And I'm saying, we have been eating vegan food for thousands of years. And how did we survive for so long then?
Right, right.
Yeah,
But so we need to learn and get with it the way other countries have moved forward. I forget what the numbers are for the UK and Europe, but they're definitely way higher. I think vegans in the United States I don't know if you know what percent, but I used to hear eight, or vegetarians, not vegans, but
mhm,
vegetarians, maybe 8%. I don't know if
right.
it's higher. I did a survey on food preference and I just used Survey Monkey. So it was 1,002 people, but about 30% said they saw themselves moving toward more plant-based eating.
Yeah,
I thought it was
that's about right. Yeah,
pretty positive, and and we asked for ages on this, or they supplied ages. So a lot of it trended younger. And I think that,
mhm,
the younger generation I mean, we became vegan because our daughter suggested it, suggested it to us. And we read Colin Campbell's book, China Study.
mhm.
And, but, it was my daughter that was teaching
Right,
us. So
right.
I'm proud of, she runs a vegan business in Florida. I'm proud of her for trying to teach others how to eat vegan. She does
Right.
a lot of our podcast. Well, let's move on, but it is a hopeful sign, I think. Um, what about the compassion for animals? There's a healing aspect to this
Mhm. Right.
for our planet, and maybe it would be nice to have you talk about that a bit, if you would.
Yeah, I'd say we go vegan for four reasons: for health, for the environment, for the animals, and for love. So that's the HEAL, heal acronym, right? So some people come to it from a health angle, some people come to it from an environmental angle, some people come to it just for animal cruelty. We don't have to do this to animals anymore.
Right.
And finally, it's for spiritual reasons, for love. And no matter which portal you come to for and go vegan, eventually you'll begin to see all four aspects of this. And you'll become physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually healthier, become whole together. And so I say that going vegan is really not a choice. It's really about becoming ourselves, becoming true to ourselves, because this is who we really are. Yeah.
That's a beautiful way of talking about it. Uh, so thank you for that. And I want to ask you about your granddaughter, Tamaya. But first, one more question about your book.
Hmm.
So, what was the moment when you realized that incremental change just wasn't enough and that we needed a completely new vision for our future? Because I think that's what your book is about. It can't be so
Yeah.
incremental. And you are a systems
Yeah,
engineer, so this is the way you think
right,
from the get-go and the way you were trained,
right,
right?
right. So from the get-go, I knew this, meaning my first book I wrote in 2011, and it's called Carbon Dharma. And there again, I mean, there I pointed out it's a complete system transformation that needs to happen. And so Carbon Dharma was about what is the system transformation that we need to do. And it was in broad terms. I was talking about in broad terms. And Carbon Yoga, I wrote in 2016, was about how do we go about doing this. So there I had ideas about what kind of new currency system we need to create. It cannot be capitalism. It's not about extraction anymore. It should be about restoration. So it's a different. So I think I made it like metamorphosis. It's going from caterpillar to butterfly. You know, caterpillar is all about consuming, 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 and the butterfly is all about restoring. It's all about healing. The butterfly goes about, pollinating flowers and creating life. So that's what we need to become, right? We become the new pollinators of the planet. And so that was the metaphor I was using for Carbon Dharma and Carbon Yoga. And in these two books that I wrote last year and this year, last year I wrote a guide to, last year I wrote There is a Planet B.
You
And
have a
this year I
second book.
wrote,
Is your
yeah,
second book out?
yes, it's called A Guide to Planet B.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. I didn't know it was out. I knew you were working on it. I didn't realize it was out
yeah.
yet.
It's been in the works for 20 years, so it's not like, right? So I was just putting it all into, putting it all down on paper. And There is a Planet B is about, again, it's about what is this transformation? What does it really entail in terms of objective functions and so on? And why do we have to do it? Okay, so that's what I wrote in There is a Planet B. And a guide to Planet B is about how do you do it? So how so so you need to know you need to go to this new system, and you're in this system currently. So how do you transition from one to the other? So you have to have complete amnesty for people. Basically forgive each other for all the mess we have made to each other, and the mess we made on the planet, and say, okay, now that we want to transform to a system that's about restoration of the planet, what are the resources that you can bring, each one of us can bring to make it happen? So it's like a firefighting. It's like a firefighting mode that all 8 billion of us have to get into. Okay. First, to bring the planet's life support systems back into the safe zone. That's job number one. Okay. So, meaning sustainability is no longer, I'm saying sustainability is no longer a vague concept. It's actually measurable. It's measurable in terms of the life support systems of the planet. So if there is nothing in the yellow zone or the orange zone or the green zone, then you're sustainable. You brought it to the sustainable zone. Okay. So all 9 of the life support systems of our planet have to be in the green zone to begin with. And then you have to maintain it there. So the first phase of bringing it from the red zone and the orange zone to the green zone is what I call the climate healing phase. And then maintaining it in the green zone is what I call the climate regulating phase. And so it's like, caterpillar going to the cocoon and to the butterfly.
Well, I told you that we have to talk about your pinky promise and Tamaya,
Yeah.
your granddaughter, and maybe you can tell the story of how that promise shaped both your life and your work on behalf of future generations.
Well, I'll begin with when she was first born. When she was born in 2010, I had been studying the environment for 4 years. Okay, and I was kind of depressed. In fact, I was quite depressed. So not just kind of depressed. I was thinking that we are the only species that doesn't belong on Earth. That if you take human beings out, the planet will be fine. If you put human beings in, the planet dies. So I had that worldview about our role on this planet. And I thought nature made a mistake, in creating human beings. And it's like an evolutionary cul-de-sac, right? That's what George Carlin calls us, an evolutionary cul-de-sac. But when she was born, I went to see her when she was a month old, and I held her in my arms for the first time. And she looked up at me and she smiled. And it was a knowing smile, as if she was saying, "What do you mean I don't belong?" At least that's what went into my head, okay? I belong exactly as I am. And you haven't understood me. So that I immediately realized that humans belong exactly as we are. And that I hadn't really seen our story. I hadn't understood our story. So I decided to go back and look at science from that angle, re-study everything, assuming that humans belong exactly as we are, that nature does not make mistakes. And you know what? Everything started making sense. Everything made sense. And I realized that we were in the climate heating phase. So we are in the climate heating phase, and we are doing this to prevent the Earth from ever going back to another glaciation. No more ice ages, as long as human beings are around. So we have control over the thermostat of the planet. Okay? So we become the thermostat species in the new telling. So that's the gift she gave me, started to make me look at things from that perspective. And then when she was 5 years old, I was reading to her a book to put her to bed. This is my normal routine, right? So I used to put her to bed, read a story to her, and then she would go to sleep. And that day, I had just read the World Wildlife Fund Living Planet report of 2026. And it said that between 1970 and 2012, we had wiped out 58% of all wild animals on the planet.
Wow.
From 1970 to 2012. So 1970 was the base level. In 2012 is where they were measuring it. And this is a survey of over 5,000 different species, both on land, in the air, and in the ocean, okay, in the water. And I was shocked because between 1970 and 2010, the previous report had said it was 52%. Okay. From 52%, it went to 58% in 2 years. Now, I had calculated when it was in 2014, when that Living Planet report had come before, about 2010, I had calculated that we are on track to wipe out all land animals, all wild animals by 2026. That's how fast they were going down the tubes. And I did that calculation by assuming that we were killing them proportional to the size of our economy. As our economy grows, we kill more. Okay? That was my assumption. And I thought, maybe my assumptions were wrong. And so I was waiting for this report to come out, the second one in 2016, to see whether my calculations were correct. And when it goes from 52 to 58 in 2 years, that's 3% per year. Even if you do a linear extrapolation, it'll get to 100% by 2026. So the numbers were right on, And so I was reading a story to put my granddaughter to bed that evening. And at the end of the story, she put her head on my shoulders and she said, "Grandpa, who were the first human beings?" Now, I have promised her that I'll never ever lie to her. I'll always tell her the truth. So I said, okay, how do I explain evolution to a 5-year-old girl? So I said, okay, imagine that you're standing on the street and you're holding your mother by your hand. You ask your mother to bring her mother to stand by her side, and so on. You create a long line of mothers on this side of the street. And on the other side of the street, you ask a chimpanzee to do the same thing with her mother and her grandmother, and so on. When these two lines go from Phoenix to Tucson, they will merge because both lines are going to say, "Hey, that's my mama too." Immediately, she sat up in bed. She said, "What? Are you telling me that animals are my family?" I said, "Yeah, now that you put it that way, they are your family." Because honestly, I hadn't put it together like that. I only knew the theory of evolution. you know. But she immediately realized that animals were her family. Then she said, then why are people eating my family? Grandpa, make them stop. They're eating my family. She started bawling. She was naming names of people she knows who are eating her family. And I realized that by trying to tell her the truth, I had created a world full of monsters for my granddaughter. She was seeing them everywhere. So I was trying to console her, and I said, Kimaya, this is what I do. It's my job to make them stop. So please stop crying. Immediately she stopped crying. She looked at me. She said, this is your job? This is your job? You know you haven't done your job? And then she said, do your job. She shook her finger in my face and said, do your job. Then she asked me, when will you do your job? And I blurted out, I better do it by 2026. Otherwise, we are all in big trouble. She said, will you promise me that? I said, okay, I promise you that. She said, will you give me a pinky promise? And I had no idea what it meant. So I said, okay, I'll give you a pinky promise. She said, hold out your pinky. And then she locked her pinky in mine and she said, you can never, ever break a pinky promise. And then she put her head on my shoulders and went to sleep. And
That
I
is a
couldn't
beautiful
sleep.
story.
Yeah, I couldn't sleep, because I realized I'd made a very serious promise to a little girl on behalf of my generation, to her generation. And at first I thought, who am I to make this promise? I'm just an engineer working on this problem. Then I woke up the next morning realizing that as a systems engineer, in fact, I am the one who is supposed to do this. I have to come up with systems that would work. Then I can show it to people and say, if you design this system, if you live in this system, you can actually solve this problem, right? So this is why I think that uh, I have been, the right people came into my life at the right time. My granddaughter came into my life at the right time. And I've been given this tremendous gift, this opportunity to actually design systems, design a planet B that people can say, yeah, if you adopt that, you can solve the problem.
I think it's just an amazing story, and I love that Tamaya was an assertive little girl willing to put you on the spot that way and to challenge you in a way that has made a difference to the whole world.
Yeah. No, I'm incredibly grateful to her and to all the people who are helping, with this. Like I have like 30 volunteers, who are coming to help in these projects like this. Yeah.
I was contacted just yesterday by ethical vegans in Africa that want our help. I don't know if you know the group. I've heard of the group, but I didn't realize they were working in Africa, looking for some help with getting photographic equipment.
Okay.
So I'm going to try to help them so they can document what's going on there and spread the word. So, it seems there's more and more people focused on the problem. And,
Right.
there's definitely been some progress with the younger generation, at least being more aware, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you?
I think they're leading us by the nose. I mean, my granddaughter is leading me by the nose, I assure you.
Yeah, well, I told you my daughter's the reason I'm vegan. So it's exactly the same here. She was a little older though than Tamaya.
Yeah.
Tamaya's pretty alone at 5 years old, kind of giving you marching orders. But
Yeah.
I'm glad it happened. It's a great story. What is Tamaya? Is she joining this movement in any way?
She's now 15.
Oh, she's 15.
Yeah, and she's in her teenage years. And I mean, she's supporting me in the sense that she wants me to succeed in fulfilling the pinky promise. But she doesn't want to be in the limelight anymore, you know. So in the sense, she's not out there doing this, right, with me. But of course, supporting in the background.
Do you have any last words of sort of encouragement or anything you'd like to say to our audience? We have about 3,000 people that listen to the podcast, so it may
Yeah.
be maybe more with your name there, but just any last thoughts for our audience?
I mean, I'm incredibly astonished at how welcoming our message is for people here. Okay, so we are in Washington State. Okay, I've been working on this together around food project for the last 10 days or so. They came over 10 days ago. And we were invited by non-vegans to come and do this. Okay, people are not vegan. Okay, they gave us the community center and they said, come and do this. And we've been
Awesome.
cooking up a storm for the last 5 days. People have been coming and eating. On the fourth day, we overflowed the room.
Wow.
And yesterday also we had huge lines for lunch and dinner. Okay? And people are eating the food and they are feeling so much healthier. And so
What
it's like,
city? What city in
it's in
Washington?
it's in a city called Port Townsend in Washington State. It's a small town. It's about 10,000 people. So we are in the outskirts of Port Townsend. It's called Chimacum. And at Chimacum, there's a tri-area community center is where we are offering the food. So, but when people have been doing it regularly, okay, and they feel the difference. And so our message is, all you have to do is to get people to eat this way, and the planet will be fine, and we'll be fine. I mean, planet has the best chance of becoming better, right? And we'll be fine. And so it's opening people's eyes. It's not that hard to do. It's actually delicious. And it brings the community together because people are coming together and eating in the community center. They're forming connections. They're talking to each other. They've seen each other on Zoom before maybe, but never talked to each other face to face. So that sort of thing. Lots of connections are happening. And people are now, discussing, okay, how do we make this go forward? How do we continue this? So it's like we have given them like the little, tricycle wheels, right, to get going. And who knows? Port Townsend may be the first vegan city in the world. Who knows, right?
Awesome. Awesome. I think Amsterdam, 35%, the last time I saw data, 35% of their city is vegan.
Oh, wow. They're pretty close then.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so that's congratulations on the work you're doing there, and I'd love to hear more about that. And if we can have you back at some point later to talk about the end of this project
Yeah.
and what it did, I'd love to have you back and your second book, because I was confused there and didn't realize that the second book was already finished.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll show you both
I
the
mean, the
books for the
second book
next.
with Planet B in the title.
Right. Right. Yeah. So this program is going to end on July 4th. Okay. That's when we are closing it and then we're declaring independence. Right? It's like a prison break from the systems of miseducation and all that, right? So and and so we can probably have a conversation after that, after July
Oh,
4th. I'll be
well,
back home July 9th, yeah, in
okay, well, that
Phoenix.
sounds great. We'll be happy to have you, and it might be good to do it soon after that. So I'll
Sure.
shoot out an email to you later in July, and we'll set up a date. But want to thank you and thank our audience for being here to hear Dr. Sailesh Rao give us such powerful advice and the wonderful work that he's doing for all of us. Thank you, Sailesh.
Thank,
Goodbye,
thank
everybody.
you, Jay.